Hey guys, welcome back to the next training. In this training, we are going to see about the standalone server. The same server, the house, which we spoke about, and not the apartment, the house, individual house, which we spoke in the previous example. That's what we are looking at right now. So a computer is divided into three layers. The first one is the hardware layer. The second one is the operating system, and third one is the software layer. Now, we are not going to talk about the software layer, but then we're going to talk about the other two layers because Docker is basically is for hosting softwares, but then we actually don't deal with the softwares at this moment. But as an administrator for middleware or database or tooling, right? So those people will be talking about those individual applications, but then which will be hosted on top of the Docker. So we have three applications we will be looking at later point of time, which when we will talk about the app layer. But in this video or in this group of videos about Docker introduction, we will be looking at only the hardware layer and the operating system layer. So over here is your hardware layer. Now, as you can see over here, you have the hard disk drive, you have the RAM, you have the CPU. Now, it gives you a figure that this is hardware, right? So this hardware is basically the hardware layer with this following specification, which is about memory about 50 GB, CPU is about 24 cores, storage about 5 terabytes of storage. Now, using this configuration, we are going to host an operating system on top of it. That's called the host operating system. Now, why it's called host operating system? We know it's an operating system, but why you have to specify host is because an operating system which sits directly on top of an hardware. That's called host operating system. Now, well, going down the line, you may see guest operating system. Guest operating system is an operating system which sits on top of a host operating system. That's why we call it a guest operating system. So remember the difference between host and a guest. A host which actually sits on top of a hardware. Okay, so that's basically is your host operating system. Now, host operating system at this moment is utilizing the complete power of the hardware. Okay, which is kind of wasted if you ask me. If you see that the whole reason for you to have this operating system is for this application, the main application, which is about 36 GB. A traditional application, which is a monolithic application, which has no no divisions of or classifications of workload, is being configured. It would be configured like this. Either it will be configured in this way or it will be configured in the virtualization way. Okay, so those are the two different methods of configuring a traditional application. But then we're going to go away from the traditional application to the modernization or containerization application, which we'll talk a bit later. But then if you see over here, this is the operating system specification, which is as equal as the hardware, but then it is divided. Now, if you see the memory of 50 GB is divided across multiple sections over here. The main application, we would have given like 36 GB for it to use. And the operating system, desktop, security services like your antivirus and other stuff, which takes about 16 GB of memory. That's all right because that's quite normal for a Windows operating system. And the boot time for this operating system is about 1 to 2 minutes. So that's the boot time, average boot time of any operating system when you have Windows operating system, especially. In terms of storage, you see the main application takes about 1 terabyte, and then rest of the things takes about like hardly 610 GB of memory. I'm sorry, storage. But then we have 5 terabytes, but then we don't have an opportunity to use that for this main application. So it just takes about 1 terabyte. I'm not saying that we should waste the resources, but then I'm just telling you, this is just an example, so don't worry about it. So this is the first item I want to show it to you. This video may take a bit long, but if you have any confusions, do leave a question on the question section. I'll be happy to help you out in clearing your confusions.